Ramon, how old were you when you discovered the author, John Grisham?
Wow. I was probably, I want to say, 16 or 17.
Do you remember the first book of his that you read?
Yes, actually, the first book I read by John was The Brethren. And it was a story about 3 judges that were in federal prison, and they came up with this scheme to try to get it was a mail fraud scheme where they was making this money, and they had people sending these checks to like PO boxes and stuff like that. It was a lot of different elements to the scheme, but it was they had a person on the outside that was working with them to pull this whole thing off. Like I can't remember some of the details, I kind of forgot them, but the story definitely stuck with me, and yeah, I've been a John Grisham fan ever since.
What were the checks for? What was the scheme?
Well, it was a scheme about a guy who, what was he doing? He was running like a sweetheart scam, and what was it? It was like but it was a blackmail. It was like a sweetheart / blackmail type of scam that they were running. Like I said, I can't remember all the details because I mean this was, so many years ago. But one thing that I remember about the story was that it was very complex in that it just detailed so many different elements to writing, and I mean it was that really intrigued me, with John Grisham, and from there on, I mean I went from that to reading what was it? Not the Pelican Brief, but it was the Summons. And then there was another one, what was it? The King of Torts or something like that, Torts. And it was about like this lawyer guy who was suing these big companies. And man, I've read so many John Grisham books, yeah.
Well, you're from Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
And John Grisham, is he from Mississippi?
Yes, I think he's from, I want to say, is it Biloxi?
Okay.
I believe so, I could be wrong.
What do the two of you have in common?
I think one thing we have in common is the need to tell stories that make people think, right? So a lot of John Grisham's style that I took from him was like his chess type of writing style, in terms of like he has a lot of twists within his story, but he don't make them obvious. So you have to like really continue to watch it, and then when you think you've figured something out, and then he hit you with something else, and it's like, oh, I thought it was this, but it's really that. So I would say that definitely it would be our style for showing complexity in stories.
Have you read all of his books?
I don't think I read all of them, but I probably read, well, you know what? I probably have read most of them prior to whatever came out in the last maybe 10 years or something like that. I don't know if haven't really been keeping up with him lately, but I probably read at least, I want to say, 8 to 10 John Grisham books.
What has John Grisham taught you about writing?
For one, how to hook an audience and how to tell a nice, solid drama. And, I particularly fell in love with, his style of how he lays out a lot of his legal things, right? So my first book, Motivation, Mastering the Game, and I think, well, 1 and 2, I stole a lot of his style with those because of the thing with the FBI and the courts and all of that kind of stuff. So I would say that I like the way he lays out a nice crime drama, and that's something that I wanted to tell in my story. So that's how I was able to, that helped me to map out my first 2 books.
What influence has John Grisham had on your writing?
Reading John Grisham, it automatically, like reading his books, all of his books for me was, I couldn't put them down. So I think that in that sense, I wanted to be able to emulate the same type of effect on people. So I was trying to figure out a way to be able to write a crime street drama, and how can I intertwine the FBI with urban and still create it in a way where it could appeal to a lot of different audiences. And reading John Grisham, it helped me to understand how to lay that out, because I think that his stories, they emulate, I think that his stories can resonate with a lot of different people. So that helped me to be able to grab a hold of that particular element of what he did. And yeah.
If you could make one of his books into a movie, which one would you make?
Definitely The Brethren. Yeah, The Brethren, definitely. It was, that book, I don't know if you've read it, but that book was very like cat and mouse. It was very detailed in terms of the way he laid it out. And I would love to make The Brethren. I mean, maybe one day I will. Who knows?
It hasn't been made?
No, it hasn't.
Okay,
Wow.
wow.
And I think that's one of the books that he should have made, but it didn't get, I don't think it got as big as press as like The Firm and some of the other ones that he did. So, it's for whatever reason, I don't know why they didn't do that one, but I definitely think that would have been a great movie. Still would be a great one.
Dreams are beautiful, but action is everything. Can you tell us the difference between dreams and action?
Well, I think that dreams are things that you see that they inspire you to actually want something. And actions is more so you actually grabbing a hold of those dreams and making them into a reality. Most people, I think that they just dream, and they don't actually believe that these dreams can be put into play. But if you just take those steps, you take the first step, the second step, the third step, and pretty soon you're gonna actually have motion. And that motion is the action that you're taking to achieve those dreams that you're thinking about. Because we all dream, right? All of us. But what stops somebody from becoming Dick Wolf, right? What stops somebody from becoming Mark Barnett? I think what stops people is the fact that, number one, when they dream something, whether it be they want to be the next Michael Phelps or the next Gabby, they want to be the next Simone Biles, what stops people from taking action, because it is, I think that is the fact that either one, they think that those dreams are too big. Number two, they lack the resources to see those dreams come true. And number three, they don't believe. So to me, you can dream all day, right? But until you actually put those ideas into motion, it's just another thought.
Why do you feel like you can do anything?
I feel like I can do anything because my confidence in myself to believe that, and to have the audacity to believe that I'm capable of anything. You know, that's something that was instilled in me at a very young age. And I think that if you don't tell yourself that you can do anything, then you won't do anything at all, right? I know you've heard the saying that you shoot for the stars, or you shoot for the moon, and if you miss it, you end up amongst the stars or something like that. Well, I mean, I think that that if you tell yourself you're gonna lose at something, you're gonna lose. If you tell yourself you can't do something, then you're not gonna be able to do it. You know, a friend told me something years ago. He said, there's no such thing as can't, only how. And he told me that about 13, 14 years ago. And that stuck with me ever since. What was so powerful about that statement is just what it said. The two words, can't and how, right? So if you take can't out your vocabulary, then that means that you're gonna try to figure out the how. So I approach every situation that I'm involved with in that manner, no matter how small, how large. I think that it's all about attitude, you know, and being a filmmaker, being a producer, you have to have that, right? Because in this business, you have to be very bold and you have to be prepared to take a lot of, I guess I would say, a lot of, not losses, but you would have to be prepared to take on a lot of obstacles, you know, because you putting up money and sometimes you don't necessarily have the money available, especially the way I do it. You know, we fund our own movies. So it's not like it's someone around, that's we haven't tapped into the whole investor pool or, tapped into people giving us money to shoot these films. So, and what I'm doing is you have to be extremely self-reliant. You have to believe in what you're doing. You have to be very calculated. And you have to tell yourself that I'm not losing, regardless to what. Whatever adversity comes your way, you have to tell yourself that I can do this. Because if you don't tell yourself you can't do it, then you're not.
What if you have voices around you that say you can't do it for whatever their reasons are? Envious, they want to stop you, they want to see themselves in your shoes. Do you meet them with kindness, or do you just deflect it?
Well, for me, I think that the best thing to do is to deflect them, because if you take any other approach other than that, and you become emotionally involved with someone telling you all of this negative stuff about what can go wrong or why you shouldn't do this. Because early on, when I was an author prior to becoming a producer, I had a lot of people that was telling me that me writing books didn't make sense, right? And even when I shot my first movie, I had a lot of naysayers, because at that time, we didn't have all of these platforms, for independent producers to release their films, and we didn't have a lot of these resources. It just wasn't. I mean, of course, it was streaming services out there in 16 and 17 and whatnot, but these services was not putting out the type of income that some of them are now, and quite frankly, I don't think that's the reason why a lot of why I was met with a lot of the negativity. I think that it was more so of me treading unfamiliar waters, and you trying to speak something into existence to some people that they don't even understand this themselves. I didn't fully understand what I was doing. I just went out on faith, and I went out on an idea to say, you know what, I know I can do this, right? So what I had to do in those moments is, I had to tell myself, well, they just don't know, right? I have to keep moving. I got to keep striving towards the goal. And in a lot of ways, what that does for people, I think what it should do for you, if you have that fighter within you, is it should fuel you. When people saying negative things about what you can't do, or they trying to impress upon you those thoughts and fears that they have on themselves, I think that what you need to do is you need to take that and turn it around, and you need to use that as fuel to push yourself. That's what I did, because I'm just a competitor. So, I mean, it was for me, there was no such thing as me losing. I wasn't gonna have it. And I still feel like that right now. We still have a lot to do. We've accomplished a lot in these past 7 years for the films, and we're still moving. So I think that as you reach higher levels of anything, that you're gonna always experience that negativity. It's gonna always be there. But to your point again, I think that the best thing to do is to deflect it and just stay away from those people as much as possible. And also, if they're not contributing to what you're doing, if they're not specifically on the team, whether they being a supporter of watching the movies, of sharing the films with other people, of being a part of the crew, the cast, whoever, any facet of the production, if they're not involved, then their opinion shouldn't matter anyway, right? So I think what you should do is you should just block them out and just keep moving. And another important thing to do is to say less is possible. Because if you know someone's going to give you negativity when you come with a positive idea, then why even keep sharing it with them?
How does someone set realistic goals?
The best way to set realistic goals is to set small goals and to always know that you can't get to from A to Z without going through the entire alphabet, right? You have to go through the journey of experiencing each alphabet before you get to the end of it. And I think being realistic when you setting your goals is how you're going to set yourself up to win. You have to know what it is that you need to do in order to accomplish something. If you're shooting a movie, I think that the first thing is being able to come up with a concept that people would want to watch, right? And then you have several other steps after that. You have, the step of finding the cast and getting the crew together, getting funding together. If you don't have funding, then you have to figure out a way to get the funding. And that has goals in itself, right? I think that you have to be very strategic when you're telling yourself you want to do something, right? If the goal is to make $5 million, you can't just say, okay, I'm finna go make $5 million. How are you gonna do it? What steps are you gonna take to be able to have that type of revenue, whether it be this the income you make this year, or whether it be this is the goal to make these type of residuals over a certain amount of time, right? You have to take those small steps and be very calculated while you're doing it.
How do you visualize your goals?
Well, first you have to have, for me, I need a why, right? I need a why. So if I have a goal to say, all right, well, I want to shoot 3 movies this year, right? You have to, for me, I need to tell myself, first of all, okay, why do I need to do it? Why do I want to do this? Well, it probably would be to challenge myself. It probably would be to put myself in a position where I can empower people more, right? And it probably would be a situation where I'm looking to make more income and residuals. So that's the main thing, just having a why. And I think that fuels me and it pushes me to go towards the things that I need to do. I have to know, why do I want this?
What about expectations? We see so many people on social media that have what we think we want, whether we want it or not. And we think, okay, I want that like in a year. And everything moves so fast. Should we expect to manifest it that fast? Or the expression things take time, it seems like nowadays that's almost a negative. People want everything so instant.
Well, I think that social media is a very unrealistic way to measure yourself and to measure goal setting. Because when you're looking at somebody's social media, I think that you're just looking at a snapshot of their life. You're not looking at the entire situation, right? So I think that your expectations of anything, if you want to keep them realistic, you know, you have to tell yourself that if it's worth having, it's not going to be easy, right? It's not going to be a situation where you should go into any situation expecting to fight for whatever it is that you want, right? And you should go into that situation prepared and expecting that you're gonna have hiccups, right? It's no different. I'm gonna refer back to when we shooting films. You know, on set, you don't know what's gonna happen, right? You might the entire production might be going well for the first 7 days, and then on day 8, there's a situation where 3 of your locations you can't get them, right? So what are you gonna do? As a producer, you have to think. You have to say, okay, well, how can I improvise, right? And you know, I think that when you striving to be great at something, preparation is everything, and being prepared to run up against obstacles that you have to pivot on constantly, all the time. So as far as expectation goes, in terms of being realistic, I think that that's very important to have realistic ideas of what that's gonna be.
Do you overplan?
100%. You know, I like to always have, like, I don't believe in plan Bs, but to what I want, but I believe that it's necessary to overplan and just to at least have some ideas in the back of your head as to what you would do if this or that went wrong, right? Now, that's not to derail you from the goal, but it's just to always have you mentally in position and ready to do something else if that particular idea or that particular method, shall I say, didn't work. Let's say it went south. But I don't overplan to the point to where I start talking myself out of it, because you can do that, right? I think that when you're planning, it's a good idea to be over prepared. But I don't think you should overplan to the point to where you start speaking all of these negative things into the situation.
I'm not sure if you quoted, this is like a Nelson Mandela quote that I think you might have had in one of your shorts.
Okay.
There's no passion to being found playing small.
Yeah, I did quote that. Yeah.
That's a great quote.
Thank you. I thought it was a great quote. I think that's why I posted it. But what grabbed me with that quote was it says so much about, like, what do you really think you're capable of, right? And I think that some people might take that quote, and depending on where your mind state is in terms of how you feel about yourself and your capabilities, you could take it wrong, right? But for me, I took that quote as to say that if I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it to the max, right? If I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna believe that I can be the best at whatever it is that I wanna do, right? And if I'm going to set out to accomplish something, then I don't want to be the best at mediocrity. I don't want to be the best at doing something that everybody else can do, right? I want to be the best at creating new situations and breaking down barriers, right? And constantly challenging myself to be better than I was yesterday, to be better than I was last year. So to me, playing small is when you simply don't challenge yourself, when you're constantly in the same pool and you're just going in circles trying to accomplish the same things that you've been doing over and over, or downplaying yourself and your capabilities, because for whatever reason a lot of people do it because they're scared. They don't want to take the challenge head on. So they refuse to be great, even though they can be.
What if you've been taught, you don't want to outshine anybody? It doesn't make you look good. And then I know in other countries, like I think in Australia, they have what they call the tall poppy syndrome. So that means that you don't want to fall prey to that, because now are you looking down on others, or the highest nail gets hammered down the most?
Yeah.
Are you okay with shining, with outshining someone, and what might come with that?
Well, one thing about me is, anybody that knows me personally, they know that I'm a very humble and respectful guy, right? But I'm not gonna allow myself to be humble to the point to where if it offends somebody else, I'm not gonna be me, and I'm not gonna continue to strive for better, right? So I guess I would have to be the nail that you're just gonna have to nail all the way down, because if God put it in me to go after something, I'm not gonna dummy myself down to please someone else's situation. Now, there are times when you don't want to be the one, how can I say it the correct way? Well, you don't want to outshine the master, right? There are times when you need to, I go in certain rooms or I'm around certain individuals and certain people, and I say less than I know, because sometimes it's necessary to do that, right? Sometimes everybody don't have to know what you're capable of. Sometimes you just collecting intel. I probably shouldn't be saying this right now, but I think that it's important to be able to recognize when you should allow yourself to shine and when you shouldn't. I think that that's very important, because sometimes when people get offended by it, that's just some people's way of trying to diminish who you are and how you feel about yourself.
Why do some artists quit and some artists stay the course?
Just think it's a matter of tough skin. Some people, they have tough skin, some don't. And it goes back to those expectations again, right? So if you get into a situation and you think that it's just gonna be a straight line, there's not gonna be any bumps, you're not gonna catch no bruises, it's not gonna be any obstacles or hurdles you gotta jump over. I think that in those moments of the obstacles and the hurdles is what defines you. So you hear people talk about the journey all the time, right? And I think that's the journey. So can people make it out of the journey? Some people, they don't finish the race. And I think it's just because they have those unrealistic ideas about what it is. Like case in point, this young gentleman, I went to see his movie a couple of months ago. And, you know, he told me, he's like, I'm about to get $500,000 for this movie. And I just looked at him and I told him, I'm not to crush him or anything, but I just told him, I said, look, man, I said, I know where you at right now. I've been there. And you're not gonna get $500,000 for this movie. He was talking about selling the movie for $500,000. Now, any person that is a seasoned producer knows why I would have said that to him. I mean, it's just several different reasons, you know, and talent in the film, quality, a lot of different reasons why. But I'm just using that situation as an example. Now, if his goal is I'm getting $500,000, I'm gonna sell this for $500,000, and he can't even sell it for $5,000. If he doesn't have the tough skin that I talked about, it might make him quit. And that happens a lot with creatives in general. I think actors, producers, directors, even anything, anybody in life, athletes, you know, you name it. People that start podcasts, all that, right? So if you don't have what it takes to get through the journey, and you don't really know how to push yourself when you run into them rough patches, that'll make somebody quit, because this is not an easy business. This is a very challenging business.
So it seems like it's kind of like you're made when your back's against the wall.
100%. I love it.
I just came up with that. Yeah, I'm sure it's somebody else's, but okay. So it's not when everything's going great and, hey, Ramon, oh, let me be in your movie, oh, and red carpet and all this stuff. It's when plan A, B, C, D have all fallen apart, and now you're coming up with E.
Yeah, well, that, and also just you being put into a situation where you have to figure it out. You have to figure it out. Just figure it out. There's nobody there to help you figure this out. How are you gonna figure this out? You said you wanted to do this. How are you gonna do this? How are you gonna figure it out? And a lot of people fold, but you're 100% correct. I think that greatness comes from struggle. When have you ever seen somebody great just get that greatness handed to them? You don't hand over greatness. When you say somebody's great, it comes from them going through the motions and figuring it out.
Right. I mean, I guess I could think of you know, royalty or people that come from powerful families, but even with that, there's going to be so much that's going to come to them, from scandals to people wanting to take them down behind the scenes, that I would imagine there's greatness that we don't see, maybe, that's formed, you know? That doesn't sound like an easy position either.
Yeah, but even when you look at situations like that, right? So if you grew up in a royal family and somebody crowned you the queen, that doesn't mean you're gonna be a great queen.
No, it doesn't.
You know, inheritance does not make you great. It just makes you an individual who grew up, who just was lucky enough to grow up in a bloodline of greatness, right? So it's like, you know, when you look at certain presidents and you look at certain people, different CEOs and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
You know, just because a CEO went to Harvard, that doesn't mean he's going to know how to run Sony Pictures. Does he know is this the kind of person, he or she the kind of person that knows how to deal with individuals? They know how to deal with people. Do they know how to get into a company and see how everything works, all the pieces? You know, or are you gonna be somebody who's just gonna sit back and think everybody else should be doing the work and you shouldn't be putting any work in or putting any grunt work in to really add to that situation? And if you're not that kind of individual, you're not gonna achieve greatness, regardless to what. In my opinion, greatness is earned. It's not given.
How do artists sabotage themselves?
Well, I think one of the ways an artist could sabotage themselves is by not playing fair. And when I say that, I mean just by being the type of person who you want everything to cater to what your needs are. And you're not trying to be a team player. I think that could be spoken of, you know, it could be writers, producers, actors. I think that if you aren't the type of person who knows how to be respectful when you're asking for something in exchange for your artistry, right? And I think that if you're not the kind of person who's being understanding when you come to do a job on set, let's say you're an actor or you're a camera person or you're a cinematographer, you're a gaffer, whatever. I think that that a lot of people probably, you're gonna make a difficult situation for people to wanna work with you and to continue to bring you back and want to work with you if you're not giving off that positive energy. And how could you give off positive energy when you're coming on set and you're creating problems? It's just not good business. I think that a good artist is someone that understands that everything isn't about me, it's about the team. And how can we all work together to get this project done? Whether it's a music project, it's a film, I think that good artists are people who, they understand that right there. And they're respectful of everybody.
Is rejection always a bad thing for an artist? You know, we talked about character building earlier, having our back against the wall.
No, I think rejection, it can be great because I think that most good artists, they've been rejected many times. And that rejection is what fuels a person who is actually passionate about something. That rejection is what's going to fuel you. It's going to be one of the components to the fuel for you to accomplish whatever it is you setting out to do. So me, I embrace rejection. And I think that some people, when you don't look at rejection in the right type of light, or you don't look at it in a positive way, some people are like, okay, how can you look at rejection in a positive way? It's simply because if you're looking at it in a positive way, you're gonna tell yourself, nobody owes me nothing, right? So when you have this attitude as to where you think that someone owes you something or something is going to be easy, is just 1, 2, 3, then you're probably not going to work as hard for it. And you're not going to get the real experience out of it, an experience that will actually build you up to be a stronger person. Rejection is very healthy, and in most cases, I think that early on in a person's career or whatever it is you're setting out to do, I think that it's necessary. I don't think anybody should just be given something. I think that all of us should be rejected several times.
How can we check ourselves? Because a lot of times we see ourselves as the hero. How can we say, you know what, I think I'm expecting the world owes me a living. I need to change who I am. How can we check ourselves?
By staying grounded, and also by having an attitude of just nobody owes me nothing. That's the best way I think that's probably one of the only ways to do it. And also, having people around you who are going to be honest with you about things, instead of just having a bunch of yes people around. Because I think that it's good for you to bounce ideas and bounce ideas off with different individuals, and also being able to have some type of peer group, whether it's one person or whatever, that you can share things with, and they can add some perspective to it.
If you are interested in storytelling, you may also like our new book, Story Questions, the sponsor of today's video. It's a story tool that offers you over 1,500 story questions that you can use as story prompts. It's packed with over 40 categories, so whether you are in the brainstorming stages, developing characters, dialogue, or rewriting, it can help you at every stage of the writing process. Think about this statement. Most powerful stories are just great answers to strong questions. We've linked up to story questions in the information section below. Now back to the interview. When you first started writing your book, did you throw away your first draft?
Actually, I did. Yeah, I did. I just didn't. I didn't see myself as a writer. So I didn't really know what, like, if it was gonna resonate with people. It just simply because, now that I look back on it in retrospect, I definitely think it was one of those things where it was unfamiliar territory and something new. So in my mind, I didn't have the total confidence as a writer to think that people would actually be engaged in what I was doing. I think I threw away like the first 10 pages or something like that I had wrote. But I'm glad that I went back and resumed. It's just I think it was one of those experiences that as we talked about before, where I had to get over that hurdle of believing that that I could actually tell a story and it would be engaging and things of that nature.
Do you think you were almost writing a letter to yourself? Or was it to share what you'd been through, your knowledge?
That definitely. I think that more than anything, it was me looking to illustrate stories that are realistic stories from a place that not too many people in this industry know about, you know. And I think that it was my passion for that was was to be able to speak to the masses about things that I felt were very necessary. And when I say that, I mean that, you know, a lot of times society looks at people in these environments, you know, ghettos or what have you, inner cities, and a lot of those neighborhoods and, you know, people in these situations are written off just because of lack of understanding. So I think that it's a responsibility, you know, of anybody who's in position to be able to illustrate that in a way where it can be illustrated in a way where it's tasteful enough and strong enough for other people to understand why people are in those situations. And that's why, you know, I named my first movie Circumstances. So the book was called Motivation, and I named the movie Circumstances because I feel like all of the young people in that situation were in a circumstance that they were trying to get out of. And they didn't necessarily know how to do it, right? They were just going about their day and their lives trying to figure things out, as most people who are in rough circumstances do, right? So no one really knows what they would do if their back was up against the wall to a point to where you're trying to figure out how to get out of an environment where it's gun violence, drug addiction, poverty, you know, just anything that you can think of. Like what would somebody who grew up in Malibu, how would they thrive in that environment? What would if they were put in those situations and they had those circumstances impressed upon them, how would you survive? What would you do? So again, you know, and I'm not saying any of this to try to make you know, put any justification or anything or any glorification or anything. I'm just merely, again, illustrating what happens, right? And you know, and I think that a person who's logical would be able to look at that and say, okay, well, maybe it is something here that can be examined, right? Versus just constantly looking at people in these situations and just writing them off. So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to illustrate stories, you know, the same way Nas did with his music, the same way a lot of hip hop artists do with their their music. What they do is, you know, a lot of hip hop artists, they illustrate what's going on in these environments. And, you know, what else was I supposed to be able to, what else was I gonna talk about if this is what I come from, right? You have to be true to who you are. I mean, I couldn't write a story about growing up in Sherman Oaks or growing up in some suburban neighborhood, because that's not my background and I wouldn't have been true to myself. I mean, if I tried to create something and it was from a place of me using it as a testimony, right? So I think that was more of, it was more of my testimony, and also it was more of me just looking to illustrate a good story.
What do you think about people who maybe came from Malibu, who they identify and almost want to emulate a harder situation? Now, I saw that a lot in the Bay Area. I grew up around a very diverse group of people. Some did come from money, some came from poverty. And I would see these people that I know that there was no problem money-wise, but they almost identified more with some of the sort of, you know, different cultures that they didn't come from, but they wanted to be that. What is that's very interesting to me.
Well, I think that America loves a good villain. I think America loves villains. I mean, what is it? What's the fascination with Al Capone? What's the fascination with John Gotti? What's the fascination with, you know, a lot of these people who, you know, who did illicit things to get ahead? I think that somebody in Malibu or any other suburb, or, you know, wherever they come from, somebody who doesn't come from that and they identify with that, I think it's probably exhilarating for them, you know, because it's picture your life the way that you picture it every day, right? And however that might be, everybody likes a little excitement every now and then, you know, and some people, they take it too far, you know, like I honestly feel like, you know, just me looking at Tupac and all of the stuff that he went through in his life, and, you know, Tupac, he started to try to live the stuff that he was talking about in his music. You know, he went to the School of the Arts. He had a very intelligent mother, irregardless to what she was going through with drug addiction and whatnot. They instilled some good qualities in him, but he got caught up in the lifestyle, you know, and I think that's a very dangerous situation when you are looking up to something that you shouldn't necessarily be looking up to a point to where you're going beyond entertainment, right? You look at a lot of these kids now, they listen to rap music, and one of the problems that a lot of people have had with rap music since the beginning is the fact that they feel as though it drives the youth to do all of the things that these rappers talk about in the music, right? And one can say a lot of times that they're right, but the problem with that is none of these artists are setting out to try to create these young people, turn these young people into criminals and stuff like that. They're just speaking from what they come from, right? So I think that with entertainment in general, you know, it's with film, movies, any level of entertainment, I think that an impressionable mind needs to have someone there to guide them, to get them to understand that this is just entertainment, right? And that's with any movie, because, okay, my films are no different than films like Heat, Goodfellas, like I said, The Godfather. You know, And these are American, those are American history stories, right? So I think that it's important that that these people who are consuming all of this content, that they understand that this is just entertainment.
I like what you said about boredom. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I really think that's a big thing. I mean, and I don't think that, I think that we all like excitement at some, point in our lives. When you're going about life and it's a certain way, and it's, everything is just, this is what it is, and it's monotone, whether it's monotone or whatever it is, everybody enjoys a good ride every now and then. Sure.
If you had to start over today and build your production company from scratch, how would you do it?
I would definitely start by putting together the best script that I can, because I think that powerful stories is what propels any production. So I would definitely start by making sure that I got the content that I'm seeking to shoot is something that is better than anything that I ever wrote, anything that I ever conceived mentally. After I put a strong script together, I would then go into formulating all of the moving pieces, like starting an LLC, EIN, maybe put together a website to start sharing ideas, some of that idea what I have, and build a team.
Are these all things you would do yourself, or would you hire someone? Or could you call and get the EIN yourself, or do the LLC corporate, the corporation paperwork yourself?
Yeah, LLC and corporation paperwork is fairly easy if you know how to do it. I mean, you just need to go to whatever state you're in. Go to the state government's website and just look up, go on there and type in start LLC, and I'm pretty sure they're gonna lead you to all the different pages that you need to go to, on whatever .gov website this is. So, and the same applies with the IRS, irs.gov. You can set up an EIN number the same way, and obviously you would need to, after you set those two up, you need to set up a bank account. Take your LLC paperwork and everything into a bank, set up a bank account, and now you have a corporation.
With your team, do you start slow? And how do you know it's the right person for your team?
What I try to do when I'm looking for people to work with is, number one, they need the expertise. Whatever it is that I'm looking to partner with you on or hire you on, whatever, is I need you to know that thing, whatever that is. And I'm also looking for somebody who's passionate and somebody that's hungry, and somebody who is an easy listener, someone that's teachable, and on a professional level, someone who has a passion for success.
Can you tell that from meeting somebody in a job interview?
I think you can, because what I do is I'm paying attention to the enthusiasm, and I also pay attention to how did you come prepared. What are you wearing right now? Did you take enough time out to go and get a haircut or go do your hair properly? Because if a person takes enough time out to go do their hair and get a haircut or whatever it is, it shows you not only the level of respect that they have for you, but it also shows you the level of respect that they have for themselves, in addition to how other people perceive them. Because if I don't know you and I came in here for a job interview, I'm gonna put my best foot forward. I'm gonna make sure that I shave. I'm gonna make sure that I have a clean shirt on, and I'm going to make sure that I'm well prepared when I come in here. If I don't do any of those three things, then I don't think you should hire me. And the reason why I'm saying that, or I definitely think you should take a real close look at why I didn't do it, because how I represent myself is how I'm gonna represent your company. And that's how I look at things like that.
How did you actually start your production company, Swift Motion Pictures?
Well, this is an interesting story. A friend of mine who I met him at a book signing, him and his wife, Ashley and Jaquavis Coleman. So they are American authors. I think they probably wrote, they probably well around 60 books right now. So I met him at his book signing in Chicago, and we kept in contact a little bit, you know, just on like Instagram and whatnot. But one day I seen that he was converting one of his books into a movie. And this was around, I want to say 2015 or something like that. Actually, I still remember what movie it was. It was White House. That was the name of it. And I don't know if it's still available, but when I seen that, my passion was to actually, you know, do a movie. And at this time, I probably was, what, 5 years into going around trying to figure out how to make a movie, right? So you go from, I'm literally trying to get funding for it and asking people to, you know, put money up and whatnot. And of course, everybody's like, movies, you don't know how to make movies, right? Like, why would I give you some money for that? So, you know, but by this time, fast forward, after I seen he was making his movie, so I hit him up. I said, man, I see you did a movie. And he was doing a premiere in Dallas, I think. And he was like, yeah, man. So I congratulated him on that and whatnot. And I said, you know, I got a script for my first book. I want to make a movie out of it. And he was like, oh, for real? So he said, he was like, man, what did he say? I think he told me, no, after I mentioned to him that I wanted to make the book into a movie, I was like, hey, you think you can help me turn this into a movie? And he was like, yeah, of course. So, I mean, from there, it went from him telling me, he said, email me the script. I already had the script. So the hard part was done. And then, man, after that, we just went to talking about the budget and whatnot, and I came up with the name Circumstances for Motivation, and here we are.
What are your final thoughts on starting a production company?
Well, I think to start a production company, I think that the best way to do it is to, first of all, just do it. number one. And secondly, I think that it's always good to have a mentor. And it's always good to have some sort of intel, some sort of data, some direction as to like what exactly are you looking to do? What kind of productions are you trying to do? You want to do full features? You want to do episodic? You want to do horror? You want to do drama? Whatever it is that, find a lane that you want to be in initially and do that. But I definitely think that just you having a mentor is one of the most important parts to it, because that's going to save you a lot of headaches. And you can have a mentor without actually, in today's world with social media, you can have an unofficial mentor by just paying attention to what somebody's doing online. I mean, everything is so out there, right? So find a situation that you can almost mimic.
I like that.
That's what I would say.
Yeah, I like that. I like how you're talking about finding one that's not even, they don't even know they're your mentor, because my next question was, what if you can't find someone? Should you wait around until someone says yes to you? But that doesn't sound like something you would do.
No,
you wouldn't wait around.
I wouldn't wait around. What I would do is I would use social media for what it's meant to be used for. And that's to network. And if you can't network, go on there and get as much information as you can because everybody's sharing every part of their life. Like I can name off 10 film producers right now that you can go on there and go on their page and see what it is they doing. And you can put the pieces together. So if you want it bad enough, you're gonna do it. But sitting around waiting, I definitely wouldn't recommend anybody to do that. It's a lot of different things that you can do, but one thing that I wouldn't advise somebody to do is sit around and wait for somebody else to give you an opportunity. You have to go out there and you have to take it if this is what you really want. And you have to understand that this is gonna be one of the hardest things you're gonna do. You're gonna have a lot of moments initially and throughout the process when it's gonna be some doubt. It's gonna be some doubt. But you just gotta keep believing and you gotta pray and just keep working on what you're doing and continue to put your best foot forward while being strategic about making it happen.
And I love what you said. If you want it bad enough, ... Those are some magic words right there. I like that.
Thank you. I mean, I think that goes for, if listen, it's just like what y'all have going on here. I mean, a lot of people talk about it, right? But who's actually putting the work in? And you've been doing this for years now. So, but it's several people who were talking about doing this when y'all actually started it. And they probably still talking about doing it right now. So that's the difference between action and sitting around just dreaming about something.
Can you talk about the 5 years you put in trying to get people to invest in your first movie?
It was a long journey, but well worth it. I would say that initially, when I first started to go after different people to try to see if, I didn't have the money to make a movie, right? So, what I had was a script, and I just had the passion for actually doing it, right? To actually want to do it, rather. And what happened was, I went around to a bunch of people, probably, I don't know, 10 people, just over the course of, maybe a few years, and asking, people that I felt like, okay, well, maybe I can get it from him, maybe I can get it from her, or whatever. But again, it was, I think that, the challenge for me was the fact that, and probably the reason why a lot of people didn't want to invest was because I didn't have a sound business idea. So, at that point, it was just a passion project, right? It was, okay, well, I want to make this movie, but I didn't even have any data to tell people, okay, well, this is how much we can make off of this, because I didn't know, right? And I'm sure most beginning filmmakers, people who have scripts and they looking to get into this, how would you have any data? There's no data available. You don't know. So that right there was a challenging moment for me. And eventually what I ended up telling myself was, I'm not going to keep asking people to give me no money, because I came to that conclusion. And I said, this is not going to happen because, number one, I can't even show people how they going to make their money back, right? Number two, which is, let me go back, which is very different now with all these streaming services out here. If a newer filmmaker is trying to get someone to invest in a project, and I'm talking a independent project where your budget might be, let's say, $50,000 to $70,000, right? The best thing you can do is go find a producer who can help you show some numbers. I didn't have that available to me, right? So throughout that process, I think I probably spent about 3 years trying to get somebody to give me money, right? I thought I needed $20,000, $25,000. So I'm trying to get this money. And it didn't happen. Ultimately, it didn't happen. And I think that it didn't happen because it wasn't supposed to happen. So now that I think back on it, right, we're going to go back to that whole rejection thing again. So I think that I was being rejected because it wasn't time. And ultimately, what ended up happening was I ended up coming up with the money myself. And when I when I came up with the funding for the project, that kept me in position where I could retain 100% ownership to my content, right? And by that time, I had more information. And another good thing was the fact that if I had made that investment with somebody else's money, I would have had to figure out, like, how do I hurry up and get their money back? But by it being my money, I was able to be patient and just work the process through. Because even when I shot the movie, my first movie, it took me like 1.5 years to get distribution, because I didn't know any of this. So all of this was new to me. So imagine me getting $25,000, $40,000, whatever, from somebody to shoot a movie, and I'm sitting on it for 1.5 years, right? Imagine the kind of pressure that would have been. So when I say that, I just mean that that all of these things happen in my situation, and it could be different for somebody else. I feel like in my situation, it happened the way that it was supposed to. And it was a long process, but I eventually got it done, and I did it on my time, and I did it the way I wanted to.
Why wouldn't anyone invest in your first movie? I know you said you were chasing 20,000, 25,000. Mm-hmm. Was this from the same person, or?
No, it was different people. I think nobody wanted to invest in it because, as I said, I don't think I had a solid business plan. Not to mention the fact that I had no experience. And on top of the fact that I was asking people to invest in a movie that knew nothing about the movie business, right? So I think that a lot of investors who are going to come on board and invest in an artist is someone who have some level of passion for artistry. And a lot of the individuals, they just that wasn't something that they was interested in. So I don't hold nothing against anybody. I just think that that once again, that's one of those things where you have to be realistic and you have to move in a way when you're seeking out investors and things like that. You need to be dealing with people who are real prospects. And at that time, I just didn't know anybody within the film industry outside. I only knew the people that I had knew, just in my life in general. I didn't know anybody in the film industry.
Personal question here, but how much of your own money did you put in to your first movie?
First movie total, probably marketing plus the movie, probably was about $40,000.
And it was all at once, or it was over the course of a few years?
Well, no, that was all. I probably put more into it. I mean, if you talk about, plane tickets and all that kind of stuff. But initially, it was about the initial budget was, I want to say, $25,000 for the movie, and then the marketing of it, the 15 came later once the film was out and whatnot.
Okay. All right, that's a good chunk. I'm not sure it's doable for everybody, but yeah, that's, and so you felt, did you feel good too that you didn't need to keep chasing these individuals around, like for asking them, checking in with them?
Yeah, it felt at the time. It was so much going on to where I wasn't able to think about it.
Oh, I see. Right? Okay.
But later on, in retrospect, you think back on things, you think back on years like, okay, after you've built a catalog and you start to look at some of the stuff you've done, I mean, you can appreciate that you did it on your own terms, and had I not continue to press forward with wanting to do the first movie, even with all the rejection that I was getting, had I not continued to push forward, I wouldn't be here right now. So it's fulfilling, now to know that, first of all, I was able to accomplish that milestone. That was a big milestone in my life, and it was also a big milestone, just in my career as a producer. A lot of people, they ask me, would you ever shoot Circumstances 1 Over? And I tell them, I probably wouldn't. And the reason why, because I think that it's important for young filmmakers to see what you can come from, right? So, and when I say that, I mean that the production value, the hustle, everything that it took to make that movie, right? Even with all the imperfections in the movie, I still, I still wouldn't, even with all the imperfections in the movie, I still wouldn't want to shoot it over, because I think that, to me, it's a piece of history that I wouldn't want to take away from someone who is at that level, right? Someone who's at that level of wanting to become a filmmaker. They need to see some realistic work, a realistic idea of what can happen with with a budget that's not so big, right? Because most people they can attain a budget of $25,000. They can you know what I mean, if you work hard enough and you focus, you can do that. But it's a different level when you're talking about $100,000 movie, right? The production value is different. So, I mean, you want a beginning project like that to be a starting line for somebody who is trying to break in the industry and they don't have a lot of resources.
Where would you be right now without Tubi?
I'm sure I'll be moving forward with another streaming service. You know, it just so happens that right now Tubi's working for a lot of independents. And it created a situation where you don't have to go to a lot of the bigger networks, like the BETs and things like that. Like you don't, like if you're on Tubi and your movie is, you know, you've built the audience and your movie is strong enough, the storyline is strong enough to where people want to watch it, you could actually make more money on Tubi TV than going and getting a license deal or selling a movie to BET over time, you know? So I think that for me, you know, I think that Tubi is just something that it was timing, because before Tubi it was Amazon. So I just think that it's one of those scenarios where I got into the movie industry at the right time, and my first film was done at the right time. And so I believe that if I wasn't doing Tubi, it'd be something else, because that's just what I do.
How many movies do you have on Tubi currently?
Currently we have 7 projects on there. So there's Circumstances 1, 2, 3, and 4, Untangled, A Good Day for Everybody, and The Rise and Fall of Cuckoo Cow. It's a documentary. And we have a project in post-production right now, All About a Check. That'll be out this summer. And we got a bunch of projects slated for production this year and next year. So,
oh, more to come. Okay.
yeah.
How did you get your first movie on Tubi?
First movie, I got it on there through a distributor. So, you know, in order for you to have a film on Tubi, you have to have some form of distribution, because you can't just submit a movie to them. You have to have either an aggregator or a distributor to get to them.
And this was what year?
That was in 2000. My first movie went on there, I want to say, was it 2018? Something like that.
Have you gotten all of your movies on Tubi the same way?
Yes, you have to go to a distributor, all of them.
All of them? Okay.
And I have relationships with a few different distributors. So, you know, and sometimes that's good to be able to figure out what's the best situation for you, right? It's no different than a music artist who goes through different labels or distributors. You have to find the best situation for you, because what might be the best situation for the distributor might not be the best situation for you.
And how would a filmmaker know that? That's a good point.
Well, I think you would know that, number one, first of all, by knowing that they're paying you your money.
I think that would be good. Yeah, okay. That's the number one. Sure.
Number one. And also, you would know that by gauging how supportive they are of you, what type of assets they're providing you with to help you continue to move forward. So what are they what are they just collecting a check, or are they actually there as a partner, as a voice, and helping you to say, okay, well, maybe you should try this, and are they helping you with different concepts with marketing? Are they putting up marketing dollars? Are they invested in the project with you ultimately, not just saying, okay, here, give us a movie and, good luck. Hopefully it makes some money, right? So I think for me, right now, in every situation it's different. If you're trying to get your first movie out there, I think that the biggest thing is to just get with a distributor that has some integrity, somebody that's gonna pay you, right? That's number one. So, but as you continue to grow and develop in anything, then that means you are going to need more from your partners, right? Because you're not gonna stay at the same level as when you first began. So I think that as a producer, when you get to your second, third, fourth, and whatever movie, then you're gonna start to learn that on your own. It's gonna be certain things that's gonna start to click with you. Because if you've made 4 or 5 movies or whatever, that means that you are consistent, and obviously you are serious about what you're doing. So you're not just making movies, that means there's gonna be other things that you're learning throughout that process. Because you don't just make all of these movies and you're not retaining no information. So I just think that, ultimately, to answer that question, I think that it's on the filmmaker to receive the ride as it is and enjoy the ride and be intentional about learning throughout the process of what you need and what you don't need.
And why not Netflix?
Well, Netflix is obviously a tougher platform to get on, but Netflix, contrary to what a lot of people believe, when it comes to independent films, Netflix is not really friendly like that with independents. And when I say that, I mean that, with the licensing deals and whatnot that they give out. And I'm not trying to badmouth Netflix. I'm just saying that in terms of AVOD, which is advertisement video on demand, which is places like Tubi, Pluto, YouTube, things like that. And then you have SVOD, which is subscription video on demand, which is your Hulus, your Netflixes, and different places like that. Netflix is SVOD, and Netflix, what they're gonna do is they're going to license your movie out from you, and they're gonna give you a certain amount of money, and more than likely they're gonna want it to be an exclusive deal, meaning that if you give a new film to Netflix, you're a fairly new producer, or you don't have that many titles, you ain't hit the ball out the park yet, whatever that might be, then they're gonna offer you a certain amount of money, whatever that might be, and it's not gonna be this high amount that people think. So that's why you see a lot of producers choosing to go to a lot of other streaming services outside of Netflix. It's just simply because when you do the licensing deal with them, they're gonna want to control that piece of content for a certain amount of time. So that means you can't put it anywhere else. And a lot of filmmakers are finding out that, especially independents, that you'll be better off just putting it on Tubi and, and cash flowing that way. Because over time, you're gonna make, if it's a good film, you can make more money than what Netflix is gonna offer you in that particular amount of time, and you might even be able to do it faster.
Okay, let's say though Netflix, if you're lucky enough to have prominent placement, if people are choosing your film, do you think that's worth it, even if it's like a year contract and then more eyeballs are on it, and then once the contract expires, you know, so more people you're building more awareness with Netflix?
Definitely. I mean, listen, it's all about what goals you have, right? So that could definitely be a situation where you could give Netflix the film and they could boost the sales up, and they could be strong for you. They could boost up the awareness of the film, which then once you get the film back, once people know what it is, they might go click on it, right? But to me, that's a gamble. Because here's the thing, right? How bad do you believe in yourself? So, do you have the type of infrastructure and the fan base that could sustain the same profitability for that project in that year? Because let's just say you spent $150,000 on this movie or whatever, and Netflix want to license it out for $225,000. Okay? So you make $75,000, right? And then you get the brand awareness, and you know you can now tell people I have a movie on Netflix. That's cool, but you just would have to look at that as a producer and just ask yourself, what is your overall goals? Because that is an option, right? But I mean, you might tell yourself, you know what? I'll take this situation right here just to get in there and figure out if you can just build the relationships with them, right? And then it might be one of your films where this might not be one of your biggest pieces of work, or you might not give them the biggest title that you have in terms of, you know, you just might give them something that, okay, this is an okay film, it's a good film, but it's not your best work, right? So I guess ultimately, that's just going to depend on what do you think is most important for you at that time as a producer. Are you trying to build relationships? Because if you want to build a relationship with Netflix, that's a good way to get yourself in, right? And if you have multiple titles and, you know, depending on what you spent on the movie, if you can turn a profit in that first year, it might be worth it. So I would just say that, you know, just to weigh out all your options.
It's great advice. Does Tubi take every movie?
No. Tubi, they take a lot of movies, of course, but I think they got over 50-some thousand titles now. But they're starting to be more selective about the quality. And one big deal breaker is the audio. You know, it's the audio, and that's like one of the main things that I've seen recently, that I've heard from some distributors and filmmakers is, you know, the audio not passing quality control. So, you know, at this point, Tubi is, you know, they've become a household name. So of course, initially they was taking everything, right? But now they've built up the catalog to where they can be more selective as to what they take in. And I would say that, you know, they're probably gonna get more strenuous in terms of what they're picking, the titles that they're picking as they continue to grow, which is understandable.
Sure. So do you always think about that? You know, like lav mics, ADR, different things. Like, is that something that you're super critical of? Is the audio for your films?
Yeah, audio is audio can make or break a movie. Audio can be the difference between you getting distribution and you're not getting distribution. So that's because creatively, when you're talking about the picture, right? So the actual story, I mean, it's your story to tell however you want to tell it, right? long as you don't have any content in there that's like against the streaming service, against their overall rules of what they put on their streaming service, I mean, they pretty much give you free reign as to the creativity, right? But think about it. The audio is more of a thing where it's like, okay, if the listener can't hear it, then it's a bad product.
Why do you say movies are like real estate?
Because movies are property. Movies are intellectual property. And okay, let's take a simple idea, right? Let's take a house. It costs you $100,000, right? Might not be able to get a $100,000 house here, but let's take a house that costs $100,000 and you take a movie that costs $100,000, right? So both of these properties, one is a physical property, both are physical, but one is a property that is actually on land, and this property lives now in the world that we live in a digital world, right? So you take both of these properties, and the idea of both of them is what the house is either you're gonna flip this property and you're gonna just sell it. You buy it for $100,000, put $50,000 into it, sell it for $300,000. Same thing with the movie. Either you make the movie $100,000, sell it for $300,000, or you take both of these properties and you keep them over time and you just let them pay you residuals. So in the real estate world, we call it a portfolio, a housing portfolio. I'm sure there's other terms. And in the film world, we call it a catalog or a film slate, right? So both of them they might not perform the same. And what I found is that my film films perform better than a lot of real estate that I've been involved with. So that's just an analogy that I came up with, right? And I mean, it's or a formula, whatever you want to call it. It's something that I've come up with to be able to equate, to look at the two businesses and compare, you know. And I think that overall, the overall goal is for you to figure out, am I just selling these properties? Am I building them to sell them, or am I building them to get residuals?
Are there buyer and seller markets for films? You know how, ups and downs in the real estate market, whether commercial or residential. Are there peaks and valleys for selling films?
I don't think that the peaks and valleys for selling films are probably bad as real estate, because entertainment, everybody wants to be entertained. I mean, you're gonna always, be able to sell a movie if that's what you're looking to do with that movie. If this company doesn't want it, another company might want it. If they don't want it, somebody else might want it. If that's not the case, you can always go make money off of it and self-distribute it and do it yourself, right? So I think that, that part of the business it differs, because I mean, you're talking there's two different industries, two different regulatory situations and whatnot.
Does money really matter? I mean, isn't telling the story the most important thing when it comes to a film?
Yes. Well, I mean, that right there is a question for each individual, because it depends on, try telling that to Sony. Try telling Sony or Paramount that money really doesn't matter, right? So from a business standpoint, I think that you have to find a balance in both of them, right? You want to tell a good story, right? And okay, as a producer, I'm extremely passionate about creating these movies. But also, while I'm creating these films, I have to be mindful of the performance of what they could potentially do and what they could potentially not do, right? So as a producer, that's one of the hats that you wear on set that a lot of people wouldn't understand, particularly the actors and sometimes other crew members, because as an EP, executive producer, that means that if this film does not perform well, you're the only one taking the hit, right? So everybody else still gets paid. Everybody else get paid. So the only person that's going to take that loss is you. Now, of course, creatively, an artist wants to, an actor, actress, they want to be a part of a product that is successful. Of course, that's, you know, they, you know, especially if it's someone who has a lot of skin in the game, they got a nice portfolio of films out, they want to be associated with things that are perceived to be good. So ultimately, yes, I'm sure they want the product to succeed. But if it doesn't, if it flops, then they just gonna go make another movie. As a producer, if you didn't map your situation out the right way, who knows? You might not be making one for a while, right? So I think that that you have to find that that spot, that central spot to figure out how to find that balance. How do I tell a great quality film without going over budget of whatever that budget is that you set, and without compromising by not going over the budget or not having such high of a budget? How do you not compromise the quality of that film?
What is mailbox money?
Mailbox money is money that you have coming in that you've set up to just flow. That's residuals. That's you having a catalog of movies and these films making you money every day in your sleep. Because if you think about it, you know, any film that you have out there, like it's somebody right there watching. Somebody's around here somewhere right now watching all my movies, right? So those films, and that goes for any filmmaker, those films are generating money even when you're not working on them anymore. So you put this film out, you look up 5, 6, 17 years later and it's still generating money. That's mailbox money.
Ramon, who taught you about business?
Well, I learned about business early on from my dad. You know, he used to ask me when I was a kid, he used to ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'd be like, you know what, I want to be a businessman. I didn't know what that was, but I knew he was a businessman because he used to have briefcases and all of this stuff. And it wasn't even so much as that, it was just the way he carried himself. You know, I always understood that my dad was a very calculated person who was business savvy just by, you know, the way he conducted himself. And I mean, you know, as a kid, you're gonna aspire to those around you. So, you know, early on, that was my initial, introduction to what business was. And then later on, I have many teachers. You know, I have many teachers along the way. In a lot of areas of business, I'm self-taught. You know, a lot of just me bumping my head against the wall and throwing things against the wall and seeing if it sticks. Doing a lot of reading, a lot of research, trying things. Just putting myself out there. So I would say, ultimately the teacher of it would be me. Just getting out there and figuring it out.
Has your dad gone to screenings of your films?
Actually, my dad invests in me and him partner up on a bunch of my projects. Yeah. So his company is Milmax Films, and I'm Swift Motion Pictures. Yeah. So he's been supportive since the beginning, and I'm glad that we're able to now, do some business together.